tonight is gonna be awesome, 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 awesome. I swear tonight is gonna be awesome.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Brit's Breakdown. Today I will be breaking down my birth story. Ooh. I don't know why I just said ooh after. So yeah, I did an actual birth vlog. So if you haven't seen that, click the link below and see the actual footage of when I went into labor. But I'm also doing this birth story just to kind of explain everything, because the birth vlog shows it all, but I know a lot of you had some questions, and I just kind of wanted to give you the play-by-play of what went down. Literally, what went down. Anyway, so starting out, my due date, okay, so rewind. My due date was November 26th. On November 25th, which was a Monday, I woke up and felt uber pregnant and just annoyed that I was pregnant and was just so ready to have a baby. But I decided, you know what, Audrey and I are gonna have a fun day and we're just going to YOLO, or YOLA as she would say, and we're gonna go to the beach and all that. So there's a vlog of that as well. So go watch that. But we went to the beach, we had a great day, and after we went to the beach, I was driving home, and I kind of was feeling some contractions, but that was pretty normal for me. Throughout this pregnancy, towards the end, I actually had been feeling Braxton Hicks kind of, you know, pre-contractions, I guess, which I didn't have with Audrey. I felt nothing with her. Side note, I was induced with her because she was a week late. So this birth was completely different than her, 100% different. So anyway, I was having a few little contractions, but that was pretty normal because I always had that. So I went home and gave her lunch, and was still feeling like a few little contractions here or there, but nothing consistent, and I kind of just ignored them. So I put her down for a nap, and I was kind of just feeling really tired from the day, and just usually when she napped, I would go lay in bed and either sleep or watch YouTube or something. So anyway, put her down for nap. I went and laid down and I was watching YouTube as usual, and I started feeling some serious cramping. So for those of you who've never had a baby, contractions, at least to me, feel like pretty, well, depending on the severity of the contraction or how long they last, it just feels like a pretty intense period cramp. So like that tightening you feel, that crampy, but it's a little bit more extreme. Like it's a period cramp times like 10. Anyway, so I started feeling those, and I was like, oh gosh, I'm having, you know, some contractions, but I didn't think anything of them. So I was just laying there, and around this time, I think it was about 1:50 in the afternoon. I remember that because I decided to start timing them just for the heck of it, because I was like, hey, maybe this is really something, because I was starting to feel them consistently. So I was like, okay, let me look at the time, and it was 1:50, and I was like, let me start timing these. And then I was like, wait, how do you time contractions? And I thought about downloading an app, but then I decided to text Colette, or Mommy Tard from the Shea Tards, and I was like, I'll just see if she knows how to time contractions, because I mean, it's not complicated, but when you've never done it before, I don't know, I was just like, how do you time contractions? So I hate-tailed her, and she was like, I think you start, wait, hold on. So we were both trying to figure out how to time contractions. So I just kind of guessed how to do it. So I started like the timer or the stopwatch or whatever it's called on my phone from like when I felt it start, and then I would stop it when it ended. But the hard part for me was, I think I have a really high pain tolerance, and so I didn't really notice the contraction until it got really bad, and I think I had already been having one. So anyway, not to get into that minutia, but they started coming pretty consistent, and looking back on it, I looked at my phone and like the way that I was timing them, and if I had been timing them correctly, which I think I was having contractions like every 5 minutes, which is pretty legit. So I don't know, I probably really should have been like, yeah, I'm going into labor. But like I said, I'd never gone into labor naturally. And just to explain that whole natural thing, going into labor naturally, I mean like I had been induced last time. So naturally meaning I hadn't gone into labor just on my own, like where my body just goes into labor by itself. I was induced with Audrey, which means I went in at 7 in the morning and they hooked me up to Pitocin, and they basically made me go into labor, which wasn't horrible, but it was a really long day, and I didn't want to be induced again. So I was really wanting to go naturally or on my own this time around. So whenever you hear us say naturally, if you watch the birth vlog, it doesn't mean I didn't have epidural, because I did, and I will get to that here in a little bit. But we just met naturally, as in like my body went on its own and I wasn't induced or anything like that. So anyway, I was in bed having these contractions, and they seemed like they were coming pretty consistently and they were decently painful. But like I said, I have a pretty high tolerance for pain. So I was like, well, maybe I'm just being like kind of a wuss. Like maybe they're really not that bad. And so I was like, nah, it's probably not the real deal. So I decided to call my doctor's office. Funny story, they have lunch for an hour. So no one answered. They have lunch like between like 12 and 1 or something. I don't know, it's 1 and 2. So when I called, no one answered. And I was like, great. I feel like I'm going to labor. My doctor's office is not answering. But thankfully, I have the most amazing doctor ever, and she gave me her personal cell phone number. And so I just texted her and I was like, hey, I feel like I'm having some pretty legit contractions consistently. So she was like, yeah, just, you know, time them. And if you're having more than 5 in an hour, let me know. So I was like, okay. So I just was chilling, and then I decided to take a shower, because a lot of times if you are in false labor and you take like a hot shower or a hot bath, a lot of times that'll just kind of calm them down if it's false labor. So I thought, okay, I'll just go take a shower and, you know, they'll probably go away because my muscles will relax and all that. So I took a shower, and in the shower, they actually got worse. Like, to the point where I was having to legitimately stop and like breathe hard. And like I said, I have a pretty high pain tolerance when it comes to contractions. And so I'm like, okay, these might be pretty legit. But yet again, I was still unsure because I'd never gone into labor on my own. And when I was in the hospital, when I was induced with Audrey, I just feel like the contractions were more controlled. Like, I don't know if it's because I was on the Pitocin or what. I just kind of feel them coming, and you know, I got to the point where they were painful, and so I just got the epidural, I think, a lot sooner when I was induced. So this time around, I was just feeling like the hardcore contractions, and I was just so unsure. I was like, in between my shower and getting dressed, I was telling Colette, and I was like, I don't know if this is real labor. I don't know, like, should I call? And we were just telling. She was like, girl, if they're feeling like legit, you know, maybe you should. But she didn't really know either, because she's been induced with most of her labors as well. And so she was like, I don't know, because I usually get induced too, and I haven't really gone on my own a lot either. So it was funny, because looking back on those Haytel conversations, I was like, yeah, I was definitely in labor. So I got out of the shower, and at that point I was having really strong, consistent contractions. And that's the point in the vlog where I start vlogging, in the birth vlog, the very beginning. That's after I just gotten out of the shower and I started vlogging. And it's actually funny, I started vlogging because of Shay and Colette. I was telling Colette, and I'm like, I think I might really be in labor. And in the background I hear Shay going, vlog it, turn on the camera, you need to be vlogging. So I went and got the camera in. So anyway, that's where you see the vlog start, and I'm like, you know, having a contraction on camera, which I don't know what possessed me to film myself having a contraction. Anyway, so then I text my doctor, and I'm like, okay, I've already had more than 5 contractions in an hour, and they are feeling pretty painful. And so then I thought, okay, I should probably text Austin, because he was at work still, but you know, he was on call, and he knew that if I texted him, you know, he could come home whenever. So before I got in the shower, just to rewind a little bit, I texted him. I was like, hey babe, you know, I'm kind of having some legit contractions, but I don't know if it's a real deal. It's probably just fake, because I kept thinking I was in false labor. So he was like, okay, well, just let me know, I can come home whenever. And so after I got out of the shower, I texted him, and I was like, yeah, I think you should probably come home. I mean, I'm probably in false labor, but just in case, you should probably come home. And looking back on it, I am so glad that I did that, because if I had waited any longer, yeah, it would have been scary. So anyway, I texted him. He's like, okay, I'm on my way home. And so then his contractions started getting worse and worse and worse, and like stronger and stronger. And then I kind of started getting a little bit scared, because I was like, where's Austin? And I think, you know, just time-wise, like, because the pain was getting worse, I was starting to freak out. So I was like, what if this labor is going really fast, like a lot faster than I realized? And what if I waited too long, you know, and no one's here? And I just started freaking out. So I was like, okay, I need to calm myself down. And so I had basically had my bag already packed minus toiletries. So in between contractions, I tried to like put on a little bit of makeup. I tried to pack my bag. And now I see why they tell you to do all of your, like, pack your hospital bag ahead of time. Because when you are in pain and you're having contractions, it is very difficult to do anything else. So thankfully, I basically packed my whole bag, and I was just trying to throw in some last minute things. And Audrey was napping, thankfully, so I didn't, you know, have to deal with that, which was really great. So I texted Austin to come home, and then Grayson, for those of you who don't know, Grayson is my brother-in-law. He lives in the same apartment complex as us, not in the same building, but you know, he lives nearby. And so he was kind of going to be our go-to for whenever I went into labor. He knew that he was on call. He works from home, thankfully. So he knew he was on call for whenever I needed to go to the hospital so that he could come over and watch Audrey. So yet again, I was trying to wait till the very last moment because I didn't want to call him over if I wasn't going into labor. But at that point, I was just in a lot of pain. I was like, hey, I think I'm going into labor, so you should come over. So he was like, okay, I'm on my way. So our whole plan worked out really well. I'm really glad that we had laid out a plan ahead of time because yet again, once it happened, it was really fast. And if we had not had a plan, it would not have worked out very well. So thankfully, Grayson came over, Austin got home, as you guys saw in the birth vlog, you know, grabbed my bag, headed to the hospital. And something that you didn't see in the birth vlog because we weren't filming, when we were walking to the car to head to the hospital, I just broke down. Like I started crying. I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And I was like bawling my eyes out. I was like, what if it's false labor? Because I don't know why in my head, I just had this thing in my head where I was gonna go to the hospital. I think it's because I heard this happen to so many people and I was so afraid that I was gonna go to the hospital and they were gonna check me and they were gonna say, you are a wuss and you're not in your labor and you have to go home, and then this whole thing would have just been like a whole fake labor. And I don't know why, I just had that in my head. And so I was walking to the car with Austin, I was like crying my eyes out and I was like, what if it's false labor? Blah, blah. And I was just, and then I started freaking out because I'm like, well, but what if it is the real thing? Am I ready to have a baby? And it was just all these emotions. And he was so sweet. He was just like, baby, it's okay. You're gonna do great. It's fine. We're gonna go to the hospital. It's okay. And so I collected myself and we got in the car and we started driving there. And then as we were leaving the apartment, Austin goes, what hospital are we going to? And then of course I just freaked out because I was like, how do you not know what hospital I'm going to? Blah, blah, blah. But he, in his defense, he knew what hospital. He just couldn't remember the name of it. And he was trying to find like the quickest way to get there, and he didn't have the address like in his phone. So anyway, that was funny. In the vlog, you see us talk about that. So anyway, we drive there, and then of course I start freaking out again because it's LA and there's traffic 24/7. And so Austin's like on his phone, he's like, I'm finding the quickest way, babe. And I was like, I don't think this is the quickest way. And he's like, yeah, it's telling me this is the quickest way. And I'm like, why are we on the highway and there's traffic? And I was just like freaking out. And yet again, he calmed me down. He's like, it's okay, we're gonna get there. So I tried to go to my calm place and just, breathe through the contractions. Thankfully, I don't know, in the car, I mean, it sucks having contractions in the car because you can't really move and you're just kind of like sitting there. But thankfully, I don't know, it felt like they got a little less intense when I was in the car. I don't know why, maybe just because I was distracted, but they felt a little less intense. So that was good. Like I didn't feel like I was about to birth a child in the car or anything like that, although I was like very nervous. But so anyway, we drive to the hospital and I'm still having consistent contractions every 5 minutes, but then I'm still in my head, being the silly person that I am, I'm still like, am I in real labor? I don't know why, I kept thinking I was not in real labor. And so I called my doctor's office and I was like, I'm on my way to the hospital, because I was assuming that I should probably tell them that, even though my doctor had already called and told them. And she was like, okay, yeah, your doctor's told us, just head there. And I was like, I don't know if I'm in real labor though. And while I'm on the phone, I start having a contraction and I'm like huffing and puffing, and the girl that works at the doctor's office, she was like, I think you're in labor. You probably are. And so I was like, okay. Yeah, I was a mess. So we get to the hospital and we pull up, and when we had done our hospital tour, they told us when you're in labor, just do valet. Typical LA. It's like, when I had Audrey, we just went to the hospital and there was parking, but LA, everything has to be complicated. And so anyway, when we did our tour, they were like, whenever you're in labor, you don't want to deal with trying to find parking or parking in the garage, so just pull up and do valet. So we pulled up to the valet, and the guy goes, oh, it's closed, valet, like it's not, we're not open. And I was like, what? I'm in labor, like why are you telling me you're not open? And I just like went off. And I still to this day don't know what the guy was talking about, because he was standing there and I mean, he obviously was valet, and he was like, yeah, that's fine, I'll take your car. So I don't know, but I went off. I mean, I was just like, at that point I was having a contraction as soon as he said that, and I was like, oh, you're not gonna tell me that the valet's not open. I feel kind of bad, because I mean, I don't think I was really mean, but I just kind of went off a little bit. And Austin's like, my wife's having a baby, we need to drop the car here. So he was like, yeah, it's fine. So then it was like it was totally like a movie. I couldn't believe it. The guy runs out with the wheelchair, you know, and like, I was like, my wife's in labor. And the guy runs out of the wheelchair and it's like, get in the wheelchair. And so I sit down and they have these like bumpy things on the curb. And so Austin's like trying to grab the bags and push me in. And it's like all bumpy and like, I'm having a contraction. I'm like, no, not the wheelchair, I can't do it, it's too painful. And yet again in the vlog you see all that. And so I'm like, let me walk, just let me walk. So I walk in the door and they have this person sitting at a desk and everyone just looks at me because there's like a waiting room right when you walk in. And I'm just like, you know, it's like a movie, literally. I'm like, you know, like breathing and just like, and Austin's just, you know, stressed. And the guy, and this lady's like, labor and delivery. She like points to the elevator, she's like, 3rd floor. She's like, you look like you guys are going to labor. And I'm like, yeah, no duh. So I waddle myself there, and yet again, that's in the vlog as well, you can watch. And we make our way up to labor and delivery, and then we get to the door, you know, they have it all secure, and so Austin, you know, pushes the little call button, and when I watch the vlog back, it's hilarious to me, because he's like, we don't have a room, but my wife's going to labor, and I'm in the background moaning. I'm like, ah! You can watch all that, but yeah, the contractions at that point were very intense, obviously, and we're getting even more intense. And I was having them, I think, probably closer to like less than 5 minutes apart. I mean, they were very, very strong and very close together. So I waddle my way in, and we make our way into the room. Of course, they give you the gown to try it, and that is the point where everything just kind of goes blurry and like you lose track of time. And I don't know how to explain it, but that happened with Audrey too, where it was like, I think you're just so into the pain and so into your birth mode that you just forget. And so all I remember was tearing my clothes off and putting on the gown, getting in the bed, and I had to fill out some paperwork and stuff. I don't know. I don't really remember all the details. So time-wise, I think we got to the hospital around probably around 3:45 or so. And I ended up having him at 5:50, so it was a very fast labor. Like, if I had not gone when we went, I would have, they were like, you probably would have had the baby in the car. So anyway, I got there, I put the gown on, I got in the bed, and I was like, I need that epidural as soon as possible, because I was not trying to go natural. No, I wasn't. So yeah, to answer all your questions, I did get an epidural. Just to give you a little bit of a side note, I don't know if it's just my body or the fact that the labor was so fast, but this is how it was with Audrey as well. I got an epidural, but I could still, for me, and I don't know if it's like this for everyone, but for me, it doesn't completely numb everything, which is kind of good because I like to be able to feel a little bit so that I, you know, kind of know what my body's doing. So for me, epidurals just take the edge off, and that's how it was with Audrey too. And I don't know if it's like that for everyone. I've heard some people say that when they get the epidural, they don't feel anything, and then I've also heard some people say that it's like me where it just takes the edge off. So I can still feel a little bit. I know a lot of comments were like, I thought she got the epidural. How could you still feel it? Oh my gosh. It definitely took the edge off. So I got there and they checked me and I was a 4. I was 4 centimeters dilated, which is pretty legit. I mean, that's almost halfway there. So we got there around 3:50 and I was already dilated to a 4. And oh man, I think I was there for about, I want to say like 45 minutes to an hour before I got the epidural, but maybe it wasn't that long. Maybe it was only 30 minutes. I don't know. I don't actually remember the time period. It might have been 30 to 45 minutes before I could get the epidural, because when you go in, they have to, you know, take your blood. They have to do all these things just to make sure that you're, I don't know, just to cover themselves before they give you medicine. Obviously, they just can't come in and just pump you with medicine. So anyway, they had to take my blood. They had to do a whole bunch of things, all these different things, which was very painful because I was having these contractions, and then she had to check me and all that. So then I finally got my epidural. I don't remember the time frame because I was just in my zone of pain. Just trying to breathe through it and all that jazz. So finally the guy came in to give me my epidural, and my water actually broke while he was giving me the epidural, which was super uncomfortable and super weird. Another new experience, because when I had Audrey, I was induced, and so I had the Pitocin, and then they actually had to break my water for me. It was just very unnatural and just, I mean, if you get induced, it's not horrible, and it was completely fine. I don't want to freak anyone out who, you know, has to get induced. It was fine. it just was completely different, and it was a lot longer process. So with Audrey, they broke my water for me, and so I never felt what it feels like to have your water just naturally break. So he was giving me epidural, and I just suddenly felt like I was peeing myself, and I was like, I did this, either peed myself or something. And she's like, oh, I think your water broke. And I was like, yeah, so this is a little random. So he's, trying to give me my epidural, and he's telling me to like scoot this way and do this. And I'm like, hold on, let me just finish letting whatever's happening happen. So anyway, so my water broke on its own. And yeah, it was just, even after I got the epidural, it was pressure. That's all I can explain, is that it was just intense pressure. I didn't feel the contractions anymore, like the strong cramping, which was good, but then it was almost worse after. And at one point in the vlog, you hear me say something about having like butt labor. Like I feel it in my butt, and I think it was just because Kylan was coming so fast that I was feeling really intense pressure. When you go from 4 centimeters to like 9 centimeters as quickly as I did, it doesn't matter if you have an epidural or not, you are going to feel the pressure of that, because he's coming like really quickly. And so I realized now that's what it was. But at the time I just felt this intense pressure in my butt, which I'd never felt before. And so I wasn't feeling the contractions anymore, but I was feeling that, and I was like, this hurts too, except it's in my butt and it's weird. So the only thing I could do is describe it as butt labor. It was just intense pressure, and I think it was just because he was just coming down so quickly. And so I went from a 4 to a 9, and I think in like an hour and a half. I don't know. I guess I could do the math. I mean, if I got there at 3:40 or 3:50 and he was born at 5:50, it's 2 hours. So it was really quick. At this point, she checked me and I was at a 9, she was like, okay, you're at a 9. So yeah, and I kept asking like, is my doctor on the way? And I don't know. I feel like when you're in labor, they just try to tell you whatever to make you feel better, like so that you don't stress out. But I think that they were a little bit worried because I was really going fast and my doctor was actually not there yet. So they just kept saying like, oh, she's 5 minutes away, she's 5 minutes away. And I'm like, you guys have said that like millions of times and she's still not here. So come to find out, my doctor was like, yeah, I had to like rush to get there because you went so fast, and I didn't realize that. So anyway, I was at a 9, I was still feeling a lot of pressure, and then I was like, I feel like I need to push, and they were like, oh my gosh, okay. So my doctor finally got there, and they ended up giving me a little extra oxygen because I think because he was moving so quickly, Kylan, his heart rate was going down a little bit, which always kind of concerns them a little bit when the baby's heart rate goes down. So they gave me a little extra oxygen, and they were like, okay, just try to breathe as much as possible and calm down and just, breathe. So once my doctor got there, she's like, okay, we're gonna have this baby. And so, they started pulling everything out, and that is one thing that was kind of weird whenever I watched the vlog back. There were a lot of people in the room, and I'm not really sure why. I can't really answer that. I guess every hospital does it differently, but there were a lot of people in the room, and I don't really know why. But anyway, so she's like, okay, we're gonna start pushing, and so she, got everything ready, and we started pushing. Now, just to clarify a little bit, a lot of you were like, oh my gosh, I watched when you were pushing and it seemed so painful. A lot of my grunting and like it's just from pushing out a baby is like a lot of work. So it wasn't necessarily as painful as it may have sounded. I mean, there was one point where I did kind of feel everything. And yet again, I think that's just because I didn't have time for my epidural to really take effect, because I went into labor so fast that I don't think it really took complete effect. So anyway, I could feel kind of a lot of it, but anyway. But yeah, the grunting was more just from trying to push him out, because anyone who's ever had a baby, it is very physically intense. Like, it is like the most physical activity you will ever do in your life. So those of you moms who are pregnant, you should work out when you're pregnant. You should try to do some sort of mild working out, because when you push that baby out, it is going to be a lot of work. It's totally worth it, but it's a lot of work. So a lot of my grunting and all that was more just trying to push him out. And also my doctor, I mean, it wasn't anything super alarming, but she had just said like, yes, his heart rate is going down a little bit, and you really need to like push him out now. Like, I don't want you pushing for an hour, basically, was what she was saying. So she's like, we need to get him out. So I think I pushed for about 10 or 15 minutes, and then he was out. And in the vlog, I think I looked kind of surprised when he came out, because I didn't really feel him. They were telling me like, okay, his head's almost out, and they were telling me, but I just was so focused on pushing him out, and my eyes were closed that when he did come out and I opened my eyes, he was there, and I was like, oh, he's here. So, yeah, that moment was just so cool. Like when I pushed him out and he was finally there, and like I looked at him and I was like, he's here. Like this baby that I have just been thinking about for 9 months and like wondering what he's gonna look like, he's finally here. So that was just an awesome feeling. And he was a boy. For those of you who've watched all our vlogs know that I was so worried that he wasn't a boy, because we had kind of a weird mix up whenever she first thought that I was maybe having a girl, and then we figured out it was a boy. Anyway, so we were all relieved that it was a boy, in fact, and yeah, he's here. So that is my birth story. I hope that cleared up some of the questions that you guys had. Sorry if it was a little long-winded, but I know a lot of you wanted a birth story and wanted to kind of hear the play-by-play. So that's what went down. And yet again, check out the birth vlog if you haven't seen it. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!
Man, tonight is gonna be awesome, 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 awesome. I swear tonight is gonna be awesome, 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 awesome. Man, tonight is gonna be awesome, 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 awesome. I swear tonight is gonna be awesome, 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 awesome. And